Yeah, just a minute. Make live कर रहे हैं ना?
हाँ जी सर. You can start, sir.
Yes. So a very good afternoon, all the students and the learners in this School of Open Learning, Delhi University. So today we are going to discuss the topic of the fourth unit, that is the Keynes theory of income determination. Right. So in the previous class which we are discussed about the classical theory of income determination. Right. So that means the previous semester how the income and output is fluctuated in the short run period. That is the classical theory. In the classical theory, there is a one factor labor, homogeneous of labor to change the out. So the production function, the functional relationship between labor output and labor input. So the classical theory is about the short run period. The short run period only one factor to influence the entire the output and income. And today, dear students, we are going to discuss about the another most important theory, that is classical theory of income determination. In that case, you have to refer this Dornbus itself, the chapter 9, income and spending. This is the chapter. Okay. So in this chapter, what topics which we are right? So that is the book. Actually, there is a PPT. So here we are discussing, and also by a blackboard we are discussing how you can to describe the what are the factors to determine the entire this output. So this is the theory. The classical theory is the long run theory. Okay. So why it is this Keynesian theory is the long run theory. In the classical theory is the short run period. The previous class which we are discussing. So what are the basic topics which we are discussing in this entire chapter or in this unit? Keynesian theory of income determination theory. So first one, we need to discuss about what is the central question in macroeconomics, why output fluctuated at its potential level. Right, that means how the output is fluctuated, what are the basic potential level, what are the basic question is. Second, output fluctuate and trend of the potential output. So this entire the chapter is how the output is fluctuated in a real output related to trend. So in that case, we need to discuss this output and spending relationship. Okay, so what is the output? What is the other level? That is the spending. Spending means you have to spending on goods and services, spending on purchasing of the goods and services. What is the purchasing habit or the consumption, and what will happen to the level of the output level? Okay, so spending determines output and income, and output income determines spending. Another point which we are discussing. Okay, and Keynesian model of income determination develop the theory of aggregate demand. That means the entire the Keynesian theory has to determine the income determination by aggregate demand curve. So assume that the prices do not change at all, that firms are willing to sell any amount of output at a given level of prices. So this is the one assumption. Directly come to the in our the Dornbusch book before that. Okay, so in the Dornbusch books clearly it is mentioned that. Okay, so what is the classical theory and what is the Keynesian theory? How it is started. I hope it is visible, right? So dear students, so in this book, this is the Dornbusch and Richard Stretz and Fisher book. So in this book, clearly it is discussed about what is the Keynesian theory of income determination. So in this chapter, the Keynesian model of income determination, we develop the chapter that is the central simplification is the time being prices do not change at all, and that firms are willing to sell any amount of at the given level of prices. So if you want to discuss detailed, okay, so one by one, what are the basic assumptions in this theory E? Okay, so here suppose if you take the board here, okay, first theory is, so who is propounded this theory? So in that case you have to write that the Keynes theory is that introduced or proposed, right? So introduced by right, so KEY and MES, okay, Keynes in 1937 in his book right. So Keynesian theory entire we discussed in 1936 or 37. So Keynes theory of income determination, the theory of employment, the theory of employment and interest, and REST. Okay, this is interest. Got it? That's why sometimes they can ask the question like Keynesian theory of income interest. Sometimes they can Keynesian theory of income determination. Maybe any type of question they can ask. Got it? The point. So describe the what the question they can ask. They ask the question like discuss the Keynesian theory of interest rate and please explain Keynesian theory of income determination, like that. So in the introduction part, we are write it like this: the Keynesian theory of income determination rate propounded by Keynes in 1937 in his book The Theory of Employment and Interest. Okay, so the Keynesian approach is the role of aggregate demand, which we are discussing. The central question is the central question of this macroeconomic model is how the equilibrium level of output, how the equilibrium level of output is fluctuated. Fluctuated. That means we know very well. Level of output means that is whatever the available level of the output, that is the aggregate demand is equals to aggregate supply. In the initial stage, the basic concept which we are discussing. Okay, what is the equilibrium? When there is a one factor, another factor, interact particular point, this is the equilibrium. One factor is this is the aggregate demand curve, this is the aggregate supply curve, sorry, reverse. So this is the aggregate supply curve and this is the aggregate demand curve, right? So interact particular point, this is you can call as equilibrium, right? So sometimes this equilibrium is fluctuated, that output is fluctuated due to right different factors. Like example, the business cycle fluctuation. So you can say that business cycle fluctuation. What is the business cycle fluctuation? Like booms, right? And recessions, output fluctuations, and so on. So how the Keynes has to describe this theory is according to there are two assumptions you can say. What is the assumptions of this theory? The Keynesian theory income determination, right? Is it going good? Yeah. Dear students, we are now discussing about what are the basic assumptions of this Keynesian theory, right? So first we need to discuss what is the first assumption is. The first assumption is the prices of right goods. The prices of goods and factors as factors of production do not change. Do not change. This is the one assumption, right? That means the prices of the goods and services, goods and factors. Goods and factors are the goods and service factors of goods and factors of production. Factors of production we know very well: land, labor, capital, organization. And what are the prices of the good? Whatever the production they are available in the market, the producer has to produce in the market. The prices cannot change. What is the point? So in the classical theory we discussed that the classical theory has to describe that whatever the price it is taken in the perfect competitive market, there is a price taker. Whatever the price it is available, they must have to take because of the available level of the wages as the people has to work. But here prices of the goods cannot change. It is constant. That you can say. First assumption. Second assumption is to the firms are right willing to sell right and and any amount of the output at that given level at that given price level at that given price level. Okay, so this is the second. What is the second assumption meaning? So the firms who the producers, whatever the other factors of institution, they're willing to sell amount of output at that level. Okay, that means whatever it is production, they must have to selling at that level of the price. That means whatever it is available of the good, the particular amount they can selling. That means supply is also same level of it is happening. So first one is aggregate demand, second one is aggregate supply related concept, the assumption. Okay, and the above assumptions 1 and 2 that the short-run aggregate supply will be straight, it will be flat, hence the change in aggregate demand will determine the equivalent level of output. 1 and 2. So here what is the another assumption? The above assumptions 1 and 2. This 1 and 2. The above assumptions of whatever the price is available, they must have to take because prices are not changed and firms are willing and selling the amount whatever it is available. So 1 and 2 imply that this is the short-run supply curve. This is imply that this is short-run right supply curve. Short-run supply curve. short run supply curve. Okay, so that means whatever is the price available, whatever it is the firms they willing to sell, that means only the possible in the short run only. But in the long run, the entire aggregate demand is AD is, hence here we can say that based hence aggregate demand is, right, will determine, aggregate demand is determine the economy level of output. That means the entire aggregate demand is determined by the other factors too. That what we are discussing here. What are the other factors? Suppose example, we need to discuss here what is the aggregate demand is. What is this aggregate demand? So that means in this Keynes theory, the entire output is, what is the output? Y. Entire output is, that is equals to aggregate demand. What is the Y? What is the E? We know Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. What is the point? We need to discuss this. What is the aggregate demand is? So aggregate output means this is the output actually. In terms of output, we are discussing how this Y is fluctuated in the long run period. That is the theory actually. What is the Keynes theory? The Keynes theory is discuss about how this Y, how this output is fluctuated due to change in the level of any of these factors. Because this is the long run theory. What is the point? This is the long run theory. In the long run, there are so many factors are influenced to the level of output that we are discussing. So first we need to discuss what is the aggregate demand. Okay. So what is the aggregate demand? Aggregate demand is defined that, right, the total amount of goods and services, total amount of goods and services demanded in the economy, demanded in the economy. What is the point? That you can call it aggregate demand. So what it is? Suppose distinguishing among goods. So aggregate demanded for distinguishing among the goods is AD is equals to, what is the AD? That is C plus I plus G plus NX. Dear students. So what is the C here? Where C is equals to, here you can write it here. Where C is equals to goods demanded for consumption, goods demanded for consumption purpose. That means household. Who demanded the good for consumption purpose? That is the household sector. That's where C. And I is equal to goods demanded for investment. What is the point? And next G, goods demanded by the government. You can write it here. Goods demanded by the government. Got it? C plus I plus J. Next, third one is NX. What is the NX? NX is equal to net export. Net exports means exports minus imports. This is what we are discussing. So now you can come into point. Right? I can take the another color. So aggregate demand. What is the aggregate demand? It consists of three earning the household, C plus I plus G plus NX. This is the aggregate demand. So what is the aggregate demand? Right? If you discuss in this aggregate demand curve, if you are talking about in this if you are talking about two sector economy, if you are talking about two sector economy, where the two sectors are household sector and farm sector, so that aggregate demand is equals to C plus I plus G. In a three sector economy, in a three sector economy, AD is equal to C plus I plus G. In a four sector economy, that is the C plus I plus G plus NX. So differences is one by one adding. Okay. So sometimes the question they can ask in this question, discuss the kinetic theory of interest. That means you need to explain all the four sectors economy. Okay. If they specifically mention, please explain the kinetic theory of interest in a two sector economy. Then we can discussing these two only, consumption, investment, and so on. Okay, dear students. So in general, the quantity of goods demanded, aggregate demand, that depends upon the level of income in the economy. So what is the aggregate demand? Now you can discuss in the another slide I can take. Yeah, another page I can take. So here we are discussing that. So what is the curve here? You can discuss aggregate demand curve. I can draw here aggregate demand curve. Okay, suppose here. So what is the aggregate demand curve? I can try here. Okay, dear students, just you can understand that the aggregate demand curve is okay, or you can say what is the aggregate demanded aggregate demand depends upon the level of income in the economy, right? So here you can look at that. This is what the level of the supply y is equal to AS actually. Aggregate demand of supply is y is equal to this here. We are discussing aggregate supply is also here. Okay. So what is the aggregate demand? The aggregate demand is here. The aggregate demand curve here. AD is equal to C plus I plus. Because we are talking about two sector economy, that's C plus I plus. If you are talking about four sector economy, then C plus I plus G plus NX. So this is what aggregate demand curve. Aggregate demand curve. Got it? So how we can describe the aggregate demand? Right? First, what is the equilibrium? And aggregate demand now we are discussing. Now we are discussing about what is the aggregate supply. That is the point. Okay, aggregate supply is aggregate supply. What is the aggregate supply? The supply is available in the economy or the total amount of goods available in the economy. Okay. Here, how can you define the total amount of goods? The total amount of goods available in the economy. Earlier demanded in the economy, that is the aggregate demand. Available in the economy. Available in the economy means whatever it is available in the total level of output, that is whatever the goods and services are available in the economy. That is same. Y is equal to that goods are available, whatever it is, household services is available, and industries service available, and goods available, government service available, and NX is also available. If you are talking about four sector economy, right? So anyway, we are discussing four sector economy only. Okay, so aggregate demand and aggregate supply now we know. So what is the aggregate demand? AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. What is the aggregate supply? AS is equal to same. So now you can say we can draw the diagram here again. You can draw the diagram again, right? You can draw the diagram again so that you can look at this is the aggregate supply curve. Sorry, so this is the aggregate demand curve. Okay, so y is equal to right. So y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. So this is the also you can call it aggregate supply. This is AD is equal to this. So we already discussed in the previous one, this slide. So aggregate demand is, so we are discussing aggregate supply. So where there is a right aggregate demand and aggregate supply interact a particular point, this point we can call as right equilibrium level of output in the economy. What is the point? So Keynes theory of income determination, where is the equilibrium? The equilibrium which were taking place, right? Both when there is a aggregate demand and aggregate supply interact particular point, that is called as equilibrium. Okay. So now we are discussing what is the equilibrium output. Okay. So what is the equilibrium level of output? The output is equilibrium level when the output is equilibrium when there is a dear student. Just a minute. Mobile charging. Sorry, my mobile is going to shut off. Shut off slide. Sorry for the interrupt. This class. Yeah, I hope it is visible clearly. Yeah. So now we are discussing that right this point. So aggregate demand equal to level of output. This is the point. Okay. So we are discussing. There is the blackboard. The blackboard which we are discussing. Right. So what is the equilibrium output? The equilibrium level of output is happening where the quantity of output produced and the equal demand. Quantity of output produced means whatever it is, the quantity of output. This is you can quantity of output produced is equals to produced is equal to right to the demanded to the quantity demanded to the quantity of demand. So what is this? So this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. X-axis is what? The output we are discussing, and y-axis we are discussing about aggregate demand. Dear students, the quantity of output produced means that is the AS is equal to quantity of demand, that is AD. So particular point we can call as equilibrium level of output. When it is disequilibrium will happen, when it is disequilibrium will happen when there is a aggregate demand of the people is not equal to aggregate level of output. When there is a AS is not equal to aggregate demand, then there is you can call it disequilibrium. Why this disequilibrium will take in place? There is a one point, right, where there is a disequilibrium will take in place. There is other factors to influence. This can express that unplanned changes in the inventories. Okay, when this y is equal to or AS is equal to, you can write it y or AS, both are same. So y is equal not equals to AD, this will create unplanned inventory investment. When there is unequal between or not equal to aggregate supply and aggregate demand, then there is a IU. What is the IU? Unplanned inventory investment. Unplanned inventory investment. This is what? This is you can call as disinvestment. This investment. What is disinvestment? When there is a disinvestment taking place, then there is a unequal premium between disequilibrium were taking place in the economy. The fluctuation were taking place. That is you can call business cycle. Sometimes the fluctuation taking place. So sometimes boom, sometimes depression, sometimes we are discussing the early stage. Suppose I can write it here. So this is like this. Okay. Sometimes boom, depression, sometimes so all this recovery and all. Okay. This was taking place because of the IU. What is the IU? The unplanned inventory investment. Suppose what is that IU? Suppose I can take the another line. So in this diagram, so this is y is equal to that the aggregate supply. This is the aggregate demand area is equal to C plus I plus this so on. When there is a unplanned investment will taking place, that means if disinvestment is what happened here before the, so this is what A bar, autonomous investment. Okay, A bar is what we will discuss later. What is this A bar and all? Unplanned inventory investment. Suppose this is I is equal to IU is equal to 0. Okay, so that means this is what aggregate supply. This is what aggregate demand. So aggregate demand is more than to whatever the aggregate supply. Aggregate demand means whatever the people demand for goods and services more than to whatever it is supply. Supply is less, whatever the demand is. So very less supply means there is a need to invest to produce the goods and services. That means once we can increase the supply, when it is happening, only the investment were taking place, then only the supply is increasing up to whatever the demand is. Okay, so then there is a increasing the investment up to this point. Okay, that is equilibrium point. Up to there is equilibrium point. That means before equilibrium point, the demand is more, supply is less. Suppose then what will happen? Supply must have to provide. How they provide the supply of goods and services? To put the investment. We need to put more investment to produce the more goods and services. Whenever it is reached that that demand is equal to supply. If above this point, you can say in this point, what this is the supply point, right? And this is the demand. When there is a demand is less to supply is high to right demand. So here is also IU is equals to not equal to greater than 0. Whatever supply is high compared to demand. Here what demand, here what supply. Compared to aggregate supply is more than to demand, that means the investment is more happen. What is the point? More investment will lead to more supply of the goods and services. That means more investment were taking place. This is the investment is disinvestment. That means here low investment, the investment is very less. So that put the investment to increase the supply. So whatever the demand is equals to supply. And in this point, supply is more, whatever the demand. That production of goods and services is more to compare to whatever the demand. So that means investment is more. What is that IU? IU you can get whatever the availability of the output Y is equal to aggregate demand. Got it? So total level of output is whatever it is the output, level of output Y minus AD. So Y to aggregate demand differences is IU. That means demand and supply differences is IU only. IU means disinvestment. Okay. When there is a Y greater than AD, if the output produced greater than to aggregate demand, then there will be unplanned accumulation of the inventories. So IU will be greater than 0. There is a unplanned accumulation in this particular point, so that IU is greater than 0. So that's why Y greater than AD in this point. I'm talking about green color. So in this point, we are talking about this point. Okay, so that is the unplanned inventory investment is taking place. If Y less than AD, what is happening? If output produced less than, if output here in this point, output produced, that means demand is less than, supply is less than whatever the demand. So in this case, the less than zero, that means firms will increase their production to increasing more investment on it. Okay, so either disinvestment were taking place, the supply demand were taking place. If investment is increasing, what will happen? Right? In the longer run period, what the theory is, in the longer run period, the aggregate demand is fluctuated in terms of not only in the investment but also other factors too. What is the factors? Aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus E plus NX. Got it the point? So now aggregate demand, one component is this is the consumption, and this is investment, and this is government, and this is foreign sector. Got it? So this is what I can write it here. So this is the aggregate supply, that is the Y is equal to AS, and this is the aggregate demand up to we are discussing. Okay, when there is a x-axis denoted to output, y-axis denoted to aggregate demand. Okay, so there is a some autonomous investment were taking place. So how it is autonomous investment? What is that? You can discuss. This is not equilibrium. Okay, according to that point. So look at here. What is the aggregate demand? First, you need to discuss each and every component of the aggregate demand curve. What is the first component? Suppose the first component is consumption function. What is the consumption function? Consumption function is the main component in aggregate demand curve. So here we are discussing C plus I plus G plus NX. Here is equal to. So this is the component. What is the consumption function and what is related to aggregate demand? Got it? So in this concept, equilibrium level of output formula defined, the new focus on the determinants of aggregate demand. Now you can understand the level of output is, this is the output, right? This is the level of output. The level of output is determined by these all the factors. So these are determinants factors are these factors C plus I plus G plus NX. Okay, dear student. So first factor which we are discussing, that is the C, determinant factor C. What is the C? That is the consumption function. What is the consumption function? The consumption function is the relationship between consumption and income. Consumption and income. Okay, to describe by the consumption function. What is the consumption function? To the relationship between consumption and income to describe. So C is equal to delta Y upon by delta C, can denote it like this. Or in the case of function, C is equal to, right, C is equal to C intercept, C bigger C intercept plus C Y. This is also you can write it. But here in this point we cannot discuss this because again we are going to confuse. So this is the one, the consumption function equation. I can write it here. Another color, black color. Consumption function equation. Consumption function equation is equal to C is equal to C intercept plus C Y. So where C intercept means represent the level of consumption when income is zero. This C represent where C is the autonomous consumption, you can say. Autonomous consumption. What is this? What is the autonomous consumption? It represents the level of consumption when income is zero. When income is zero. That is the point. That means this is depends upon the Keynes, the Keynes psychological law. What is the Keynes psychological law? When there is a level of income, right? When there is a level of income is zero, there is some consumption were taking place. That is one called Keynes psychological law. What is the Keynes psychological law? Keynes psychological law says that when there is a level of income is zero, there is some level of consumption were taking place. How much it is depends upon the person to person. That's why this is the autonomous consumption, you can say. And what about C? This one you can call as, this is the autonomous consumption, right? That is the level of consumption when income is zero. That means if you have any kind of, right, one person, if you are the student, you have some kind of living in the country, so we need to consume some good, that is the minimum goods, shelter, food, water, whatever it is, the minimum consumption good. Even you don't have, right, you don't have money, but you must have to, right, live, you must have to take some goods and services like air, water, everything is natural resources available even when income zero. There is a consumption is taking place. Okay, what consumption was taking place? Even when zero income, there is some consumption was taking place. This is you can call. That's why this is aggregate demand. So that is you can call as keen psychological. According to keen psychological law, even when income is zero, there is some level of consumption was taking place. So that this is the autonomous. What is this C? C is MPC. What is the MPC? Marginal propensity to consume. This consumption function you can divide it to one is the MPC, another one is APC. Okay, good. So, what is the MPC? The MPC is marginal propensity to consume. Marginal propensity to consume. What is that? That is delta Y upon by delta C. MPC. You can say the change in the level of consumption to change in the level of income. What is the point? Delta Y by delta C, that you can call MPC. The change in the level of consumption to change in the level of income. How much to change in the consumption to change in the level of income. That is called MPC. Okay. What about APC? The average propensity to consume. Average propensity to consume. What is this? The change in the level of Y to C. So this is APC is equal to Y upon by C. The earlier change in MPC means the level of consumption to change in the level of income. Just change in the income to consumption. Or changing consumption to income. That is the APC. Average. This is the marginal propensity. This is the average propensity to consume. So what is the C? C is the MPC. That point which you understand. So C means how much to change the level of consumption to change in the level of income. This is the MPC. Got it in this equation. MPC means delta Y upon by delta C. And what about this Y? Y is YD, you can say, disposable income. So consumption function C is equal to C intercept plus small c YD. What is this D? What is YD? This YD is disposable income. Disposable income. What is the disposable income? So when there is a income, Y is equal to some amount. Got it? So Y is equal to already we discussed disposable income, personal income minus UPI, CPI, and minus UPI, SUP, and so on disposable income. So in the disposable income, there is some taxes also taking place. Okay, YD. After reduce the tax, whatever it is remaining income, that is the disposable income. So minus taxes plus subsidies here. Okay. So disposable income is how much to change in the level of income to change in the consumption is. So that is you can call it as consumption function. What is the point? So first we need to discuss what is the level of income to change in the consumption. So consumption change, this aggregate demand curve change. If suppose the consumption is increasing this much level, 1% change in the level of consumption of the household. Who is the C? That is the household sector. This is where we are discussing. If the consumption pattern change, then suppose earlier we purchased 10,000 rupees whatever the goods and services per month, but nowadays per month maybe 20,000 we are consuming for sustaining life. So if the consumption pattern change, then the entire level of output or the income automatically change. That point which we are discussing. Suppose out of this aggregate demand, come to the diagram. In this diagram, dear students, I can take the green color. Come to this diagram. X-axis you can denote it to output, Y-axis denoted to aggregate demand. This is not an aggregate demand curve. Keep it in your mind. Okay, this is only the autonomous investment demand. So if there is a investment, there is a consumption what taking place. There is a consumption to change in the level of consumption. The aggregate demand curve is automatically changed this much low. AD is equal to C plus I plus J. Got it? C plus I plus J and plus NX. Right? So that means the household consumption change, the entire income automatically change. Earlier income is this, output is this much level. Due to change in the level of this consumption pattern, right? Consumption to change, the level of aggregate demand curve to change. If this aggregate consumption to change, the aggregate demand change. So how? If the consumption is increasing, the aggregate demand curve will shift to upward. So that aggregate demand can shift, then earlier aggregate level of output is OY0. Now aggregate level of output is here OY1, Y star 1. So consumption change, aggregate demand change. So this is the relationship between consumption function and aggregate demand. I hope you people are understanding. Yes, students. So if any of the factor to change, what is the Keynesian theory? Any of these four factors to change, the aggregate demand curve change. If the aggregate demand curve change, then level of output will change. This is the level of output. What is the point? So earlier level of output is OY star. Now OY1 star. Output is fluctuated. What is the fluctuation to output change? Due to the consumption function. Due to the consumption change. What is the consumption? The household sector consumption pattern change, the income change. The income change automatically aggregate demand curve. Because Y change, the aggregate demand curve. This is aggregate demand and investment, which we are discussing. Okay. Next we are discussing, what is the time? Okay, 5 minutes we are discussing the saving function and investment function. Then we are discussing question and answers. So next is saving function and aggregate demand. Consumption function we discuss because these are all of the factors. What is the consumption function? What happens to the rest of the income? Consumption function is the functional relationship between income and saving. Okay, what is the saving? What happens? Saving is the saving is after consumption, whatever you are getting or income, that is saving. Okay, so what happens? What happens to the rest of the dollar income after consumption or saving? Okay, so how you can get this consumption? So consumption you can get Y is equal to C plus I if you are talking about two sector economy. Okay, if you are talking about in a two sector economy, Y is equal to C plus I. If you want to know what is the S, so I is equal to what? Why it is I coming? Before there is a saving. So Y is equal to C plus S only. Before saving, what is the investment were taking place? Nothing, na. That means we are the households, right? After you getting the income, you have to consume some minimum goods. After consumption, what will you have to do? C plus S. Some we have to save. The saving in terms of the bank, in terms of the funds and mutual funds and other sources, whatever it is. The saving were taking place. That saving will leads to S is equal to I. Investment were taking place. The saving will leads to the investment. The investment will take to change in the entire output. So S is equal to I is equal to S. So here C plus S you can write it because we know to know saving function. So how you can get this S? S is equal to Y minus C. Where is the point? What is the S? Saving. Saving is equal to out of the rest of the income minus consumption. Whatever you are consuming. Suppose your income is 10,000 rupees, right? You consume only 4,000 rupees. The remaining is 6,000 is your saving. Got it? So this is the saving. This saving is equal to investment. So 6,000 is the saving and investment will automatically take place. If they change, then aggregate demand or Y automatically change. Income will automatically change. That is the aggregate demand. Saving change, income change. How it is change? Earlier consumption change, income change. Now saving change, the Y change. That is investment change and Y change. Aggregate demand will shift to somewhere. That is what we are discussing. Got it? So earlier we are discussing consumption function. Now we are discussing what is the saving function is. Okay. So saving function is related to the level of saving to the level of income. What is the saving function? The level of saving to the level of income. Yes, student. So we understand that what is the level of saving, what is the level of income. That is the whatever it is change at the level of saving to change the income is. That is the this one. Y is equal to C plus S. How much to change? Whether it is saving is increased, the income is automatically increased. So investment will automatically increase. Saving declining and investment declining, so that level of income is automatically declining. So what is the function saving function line, or you can see the diagram. So the saving function is you draw, right? So this is what aggregate supply. AS is equal to C plus I plus G. What about saving? Right? Saving is here like this. Okay. So this is the saving negative saving function. Okay. If you understand easily, I can go to the diagram. I think time is only 5 minutes. After this discussion, we can go for question and answer 5 minutes. So this is what we are discussing, saving function. This is the consumption function, blue line. So aggregate demand is shifted to right mode, and the saving function is here. You can look at how you can get this. Look at S is equal to Y minus C. it tells that saving is equal to income minus consumption. Okay, so what is the C? If you this C, already we know what is the C. Okay, so what is the C here? We are talking about y is equal to C plus S. Yes, we know saving. If you want to know the saving, we need to write, substitute the C is equal to, what is the C? C is equal to C interrupt plus CY, right? So C is equal to C intercept plus CY, that is YD plus S. Okay, so now you can look at, so y common, so y minus CYT, okay, is equal to, okay, C intercept. So 1 minus 1 upon by C is equal to C interrupt plus S. So S is equal to, so here you can look at, so this diagram. So C interrupt y minus C interrupt C interrupt minus CY. So minus CY, you can come into this equation into, suppose I can write it here, I can arrange it here, don't confuse, I'm writing somewhere, but you need to write it like this. So if you, this minus C equal, above equal, after equal sign, so that is come to the minus C equals to, so y minus C YT plus S. Okay, so this is what the consumption function. Okay, so if you want to the saving equation, so minus C, okay, simplify this equation, okay, so minus C into 1 minus C, right, y, so S is equal to, so this is the saving function actually, the consumption is always the negative relationship. Okay, so this is today's class. We'll continue this concept. After the saving function, we can discuss investment function, after that government, and after that equipment level of income, how it is calculated. Okay, so I think I stop the class now. If you have any doubt, so please take it here so that I can answer your question. Okay, yeah, I think 26, 24, 5 minutes here. So if you want, you can, if you do have any doubt, and if you want to clarify any doubts, please text the message, drop your message here. This question and answers, so that I can answer. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, can you please the PPT center? Actually, yes, this PPT is there. I will send you. Okay. And सोहेल का सपोर्ट मटेरियल में कौन सा चैप्टर है? सपोर्ट मटेरियल में चैप्टर है फिनिशन थ्योरी एंड कंप्लीमेंटेशन है, लास्ट वाला, ठीक है, लास्ट यूनिट का, ठीक है बेटा। और क्वेश्चन पूछा है, ग्रुप आपका जो होता है, बता दूंगी प्लीज शो प्रीवियस लाइफ और दैट इंट्रोडक्टरी पार्टी है, राइट। मेरे पास कुछ ग्रुप नहीं है बेटा, इसी में माइक्रोसॉफ्ट में हम लोग कम्युनिकेट करना, आप मैसेज लिखो क्या चाहिए, उसमें मैं आपको डाउट क्लियर करता हूँ और मटेरियल देता हूँ, नोट्स प्रोवाइड कर दो, ठीक है बेटा। अगर कॉन्सेप्ट की कोई डाउट है तो पूछो बेटा, नॉर्मल डिस्कशन से ये तो चल रहा है। या व्हाट इज एज्यूम्ड? या एज्यूम्ड मीन्स डियर स्टूडेंट्स, नो द कॉमन आंसर। लास्ट वाली इक्वेशन कैसे किया? लास्ट वाली इक्वेशन मतलब y is equal to c plus I, right? Y is equal to c plus s, and what is the saving function is that equation, right? Yeah, I will tell you what is y assumed. So dear student, y assumed mean, first I answered that. Okay, so some student asked me that what is the y assumed? Y assumed nahi, y means, okay, this y means disposable income, this y means disposable income. Okay, so this y means level of output available in the economy. So what is the level of output available in the economy? Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. This is the supply of output, aggregate supply. This is what? Aggregate demand. But no assume aggregate supply is available. Why it is available? Whatever the demand and whatever the supply is available. So more the factors are increasing, the output is increasing. So output is increasing, aggregate demand is available. Okay, supply is available. Whatever it is increase the level of labor inputs, other factors, the output is also increasing same level. So that's why this is you can say that 45 degrees line. This y assume that means y is the 45 degrees line that indicates that increase the level of factors and the output will automatically increase that much level. So this much level factors which you are using, output is this much. This much level factor using, output is this much. So that is assuming that y is equal to level of output, y is equal to aggregate supply. And you can say that this equation, I think the student asked. Okay, the students, we are asking that dear student, y is equal to c plus s. Okay, this is the total income out of the consumption, sorry, minus s. This is not, okay, minus s. This is the plus one. If you want, c is equal to this. C is equal to this one. This equation is consumption function equation. According to that, you can substitute c equals to, so y is equal to c plus s, c minus s, right? Correct. C plus s one, c plus s. What is that? C is the consumption. C consumption means instead of this, you can substitute this equals to c interrupt plus c by d plus subsidy. So equals to come minus c equals to y minus c by d plus subsidy. So we want s, so minus 1 and c interrupt 1 minus y, 1 minus c by, so equals to s. So this simple equation minus c interrupt, right, minus y plus c y t, okay, plus s. So this simplify this equation minus c minus 1 plus c, y is common, y 1 jar y plus y 1 jar y cd and plus s. So s is equal to minus c upon 1 minus dy. Yeah, this is the y. So this is the conjunction. Okay, I'll stop the class now. Tomorrow, you can. Thank you. I think yes. Mohitji, please stop the live video. Thank you, Varanda. We'll see you next class. This continue class of the this right clean theory of income determinants. If you have any doubt, so drop here. Okay. Thank you, Varanda. Hello, Mohit.